Picking up our discussion, we're going to talk about the parathyroid glands and we're going to talk about the adrenal cortex in this video. Now you're looking in the graphic over to the right at a thyroid gland and you're looking at the back side, posterior, and you can see there are 4 parathyroid glands that are attached to the back of the thyroid gland. There can be from 3 to 5, and they secrete parathyroid hormone, PTH, as well as from their chief cells. Now, the chief cells secrete this parathyroid hormone, and the thyroid gland secretes calcitonin. And both of those have to do with your calcium ion concentration. They are antagonists because they work and have opposing effects. If the thyroid gland secretes calcitonin, it's because of a low calcium ion concentration in the blood. But if the chief cells secrete parathyroid hormone, it's because of a high calcium ion level in the blood. Now, as I said, the reason for parathyroid hormone is to maintain our blood calcium ion concentration. And anytime our calcium ion levels in our blood get low, then it's going to trigger the secretion of parathyroid hormones. And by doing that, it increases the release of the calcium ions from the bone, and it does this by stimulating the osteoclast. It also helps us to absorb more dietary calcium ions with our small intestine. It acts on our kidneys, and it helps increase the absorption of calcium ions as well, and helps us to get more of the calcium ions from the fluid that's in the kidneys. So that's our parathyroid hormone. And as I said, it's an antagonist to the calcitonin from the thyroid gland. Now, the adrenal glands are found right on top of the kidneys. They look like little hats sitting up on top of each kidney. They're pyramid shaped, and they make catecholamine and steroid hormones. There are 2 regions of the adrenal gland. There's the adrenal cortex, which is the outside. It's the endocrine gland part. And then there's the medulla that's inside there. And the medulla is a neuroendocrine organ, and it secretes neurotransmitters or neurohormones instead of hormones like the cortex does. Now, the cortex has 3 zones, and they are very distinct, and they make steroid hormones. This cortex makes steroid hormones from cholesterol. The outer zone is called, and we're talking about right up here at the top, this is the zona glomerulosa, and you see how the cells there are packed tightly together? Outside of it now, that's just a capsule. And then you got the cells kind of get in rows. That's the zona fasciculata. And then down here, where you see this area, this is the zona reticularis, and the cells are kind of irregularly arranged here. And then you have the adrenal medulla below that. Now, the zona glomerulosa up here at the top, it is going to produce mineral corticoid hormones and things that balance our sodium ions and our potassium ions. The zona fasciculata that's in the middle, it secretes glucocorticoids and the androgenic steroids. So it helps balance our sugars, and it secretes these androgens, which are hormones from the gonads. And then you've got the zona reticularis here, and it does the same thing that the zona fasciculata does. It secretes the glucocorticoids and the androgenic steroids. The main mineral corticoid that is secreted from the zona glomerulosa is aldosterone, and it regulates our concentration of some minerals. Mineral is there. That's the prefix. And then corticoid, that tells us it's got to do with the cortex of the adrenal gland. It helps to keep our muscle cells functioning and our neurons functioning because it makes sure there's a concentration of the sodium extracellularly and the potassium within the cell. It also regulates the fluid volume of the extracellular fluid by creating a concentration gradient. It helps maintain our blood pressure and making sure that we get enough blood that's going to the heart and the brain and the kidneys. And then it maintains our acid-base homeostasis. In our kidney tubules, it'll cause us to secrete more hydrogen ions or to transport more of these to our urine to lower our hydrogen ion concentration and cause our pH to become a little bit more alkaline. So those are all the effects of the aldosterone from the zona glomerulosa. Now, the zona fasciculata and the zona reticularis, as I said, they do the same thing. They make these glucocorticoids to balance our sugar, and they mediate the body's response to stress. The zona fasciculata actually makes cortisol, which is hydrocortisone, and that's the most potent glucocorticoid. And in response to stress, our body has to maintain homeostasis even though we are stressed. So we want to regulate our blood glucose levels. And that cortisol will cause the liver cells to make enzymes that help make new glucose molecules from your fatty acids and your amino acids. And that's called gluco, which is sugar. Neo is new, and genesis is making. So it's making new glucose molecules. And this increases our glucose levels. Cortisol also will cause the breakdown of proteins in your skeletal muscles to get those amino acids free so that they can be used in gluconeogenesis to make more glucose. It acts also on adipocytes to release those fatty acids so that that can be, you can get the glucose out of that so that you can also have the gluconeogenesis happen in the liver. The receptors for cortisol are found on many, many cells throughout the body, and it's a potent anti-inflammatory. It also decreases the levels of certain of your leukocytes, like your basophils, which cause inflammation. Looking a little bit closer at the zona reticularis, we are having our androgenic steroids or our sex hormones from our gonads are going to be made here. And it happens in both genders, and it's mainly a byproduct or a pathway from the cortisol. And it has pretty much the same effects as the ones that are made by the gonads. And it can be converted in circulation to testosterone or estrogen.